Now recording from deep within the bowels of Castillo de Metal, located in the barren wasteland of South Broadrivel. Three heavy metal degenerates doing their best to put sentences together and discuss all that is hard rock and heavy metal. The Stone and Steel Cast.
Okay, we are back. The Stone and Steel Cast, back for our sophomore effort now after last week's debut smash hit. Thank you for joining us. I am James Yarnell. Accompanying me again is Brandon Moss and Patrick E. O'Connor. We also have a special guest with us today, JD. JD, are you there?
Yo. Yes.
Hello.
I apologize for the noise. That's
okay. We've all three known JD for quite a long time. He played in the band with him for many, many years, so we're glad to have him on here. We got a lot to talk about tonight, so we're glad you're joining us, and let's get right down to it. So I guess we should talk about this first because it's pretty big in the news of rock/metal. And actually, I just read the article today. Pat sent it to me over the internet. And allegedly, the word on the street now is all unconfirmed, but Brian Johnson has been fired from AC/DC as a singer. And Angus is diligently looking. The band is looking for a singer to replace him on the remaining dates of this tour. So
they should have me to sing for AC/DC. I'm a boo.
Thank you, Bon Scott from the grave. But I don't know. Evidently, they've narrowed it down to a handful of few guys. So I guess what are your initial reactions, Pat?
You hate to see it. I mean, I can see a little bit of it from the band standpoint, saying that they want to go on and they want to finish the tour, but it's Brian Johnson. He's been in the band for 36 years. I mean, I don't know. It just makes you wonder if there's some bad blood there anyway. If there's been, the relationship's been on shaky ground. I mean, you look at what was reported last week that, Brian Johnson, even after all this time, felt like a hired gun. That's not been confirmed that
right.
He really said that. But, then this comes out. Like I said, the article, I think I found it on Metal Shop, which, I don't know what their credibility is, but you hate to see it. I mean, and, a band that's tenured like that, I don't think they'd have any backlash from the fans if they just said, hey, you know what, Brian can't go, and so sorry, we can't tour,
right?
But like I said, I mean, I can't see the band needing the money, needing the money to for whatever reason. So I mean, yeah,
well, this same rumor said that Angus was planning on keeping the band going for another 10 years or so. Which, when I read that, just blew my mind.
Jeez. Yeah. I kind of, this may segue later, but I'm kind of in the minority when it comes to replacing key members of a band. As long as the product is good, then I am perfectly okay with someone else stepping in, as long as at least one of the iconic members is still in the band. And of course, a band I'm talking about other than AC/DC, but I had no issues, because if you're going to be in the band and you're going to bring down the performance, and you're really just you're essentially doing what Robert Plant did to avoid a catastrophe with getting Led Zeppelin back together. There's still Jimmy Page, there's I guess Bonzo's son, and John Paul Jones. But he knew he was going to make the product on stage unbearable, because he knows he can't hit that, and it's not fair to the fans. So I'm okay with this as long as they get somebody good. They've already lost Angus, not Angus.
Malcolm.
Phil Rudd.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, their drummer's going to jail. So why not get somebody like Jim Brewer up there?
Well, the rumor is, Brandon told me this just a little bit ago tonight, that I don't know where he heard this, and he can elaborate, that maybe they're going to tap Axl Rose to fill in. Brandon, can you please explain?
Oh, it's just a rumor. And right now, everything is just rumor and speculation, just like we're doing right now. It's anyone's guess until we get an actual word from the band themselves. This is all speculation. It's really hard for me to believe that Axl would be on board with this because he's in the middle of what should be a Guns N' Roses reunion that we even talked about that last week.
At Coachella. They're playing at Coachella.
Yeah. Guns N' Roses playing Coachella, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Guns N' Roses is playing Coachella.
I don't know. We'll see. It will be interesting as time goes on. We'll keep for you listening at home, we will keep our ears to the ground and see if we can learn any more about this. But the rumor mill is definitely spinning. Yes.
I read the article, and it's and I don't know, I've not heard of the source before, but I think it's like alternativenation.com, which is kind of weird that they would be reporting it. But they posted a picture of the guy that supposedly is claiming this from it's a radio station in Atlanta, actually, that said these comments yesterday. I just read it before.
You're there. You need to get on this. But anyways, I guess what we were saying. Like I said, we will keep an eye on this for sure. And if anything else comes up, we'll let everybody know. Moving on, one of the reasons, the main reasons we asked JD to come on tonight is we wanted to talk about another, I guess, rumor that's going around right now. And this is talk about unsubstantiated. I mean, I don't think there's going to come anything's going to come of this, but I guess Ace Frehley in a recent interview said he is open to a KISS reunion. And I don't know if there's anything from the actual KISS camp about that. I haven't heard anything, but I don't know. Brandon, what are your initial thoughts on this? You've heard a little bit about this. What's your take?
Yeah, I heard him on the radio talking about how he's open to a KISS reunion. He makes it sound like he's on pretty decent terms with those guys, and the feuding between band members is exaggerated, which on one hand I could see that because I think, just like all the other headlines we see about all other bands, all the other headlines we see in the past week even, it seems like there's a lot of exaggeration going on to get clicks and to get views and whatnot. That's my take anyway.
Right. Well, as one of the biggest KISS fans I know, JD, I'm going to go ahead and give the mic over to you. What are your thoughts on this? And I also kind of want to use this to talk about, and this kind of goes into the AC/DC discussion, the whole discussion about original members in a band and what constitutes the original band. And we'll go on to another band that's kind of going through this here in a second. But JD, what are your initial reactions to hearing these potential reunion rumors? You think there's anything behind that or no?
I really don't. And I think it's two things are going on. Number one, I feel like Ace Frehley right now is somehow getting a little bit more music cred right now in the industry than KISS is. Like, he's kind of in right now. And like his new songs and his covers that he's putting out, like, people dig it and it's good. And KISS maybe they just want a part of that. But listen, here's where I was unpopular back then, and it's going to be unpopular now against KISS fans. I do not want Ace Frehley back in KISS because he is not the same Ace Frehley. He cannot play what he used to play. All that stuff that he's record on his album, that's in studio. Okay? Granted, I love hearing an Ace Frehley song. I love hearing him sing. And I love hearing his songs that he writes because he writes some really good riffs. But the dude's chops are not there, and they're not up to par. And they just kind of water down the KISS product here in a slop. As cool as it would be to have Ace back in the band, I'm just like, why? Tommy is Robo Ace already.
Nano Ace.
He does a perfect Nano Ace. He does a perfectly good job of not only mimicking the solos but making them better, in my opinion. The best guitarist in KISS was not Ace Frehley. The best overall guitar player was Ace Frehley, but not from a technical standpoint. That was Bruce Kulick. By far the best guitar player in KISS technically.
Vinnie Vincent?
Yeah, that's not true. Vinnie Vincent was a better guitarist than.
I love both those guys, but Vinnie Vincent was extremely technical.
Yeah.
Dude,
you need to go back and listen. You need to go back and listen to the Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and one track in particular, and that is "Pull the Pin on My Love Grenade."
No, listen. Another very unpopular statement that I've made several times.
That's true. I can verify that JD and I have long disagreed on this.
Ace can still deliver live, though. That's fine if you don't want him in Kiss, but Ace can still deliver live, though.
Yeah, and I think if he rehearsed, he could play. I don't see that. I don't agree with that. But I mean, that's your opinion. That's fine. But
yeah, well, look, my three out of the top 5 my all-time favorite Kiss albums involve Vinnie Vincent, whether he's playing on the album or he wrote some of the songs. Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, and Revenge.
Well, Creatures, I think, was Bob Kulick, wasn't it? Correct me if
No,
I'm
it
wrong.
was Vinnie.
That was Vinnie.
That was Vinnie. He helped write some of the best songs on there. He helped write War Machine, and he came up with some of the darkest, most heavy metal Kiss songs in history, which is why those are my favorite. That's my favorite Kiss sound. The 70s it's okay. You know, it's the classic Kiss. But to me, Creatures, Lick It Up, and Revenge are 3 of the heaviest albums Kiss has ever done, and I really wish they would return to that.
Well, I think you have to look at it.
This is bugging me now.
Sober.
Which one is Bob Kulick in now? I know
he played on some of Destroyer, and he also that's right. Yeah, he had to do some licks for Ace on Destroyer, particularly Flaming Youth. And I believe he also played a little bit on Dynasty, or no. I think, what's his name? Anton Fig filled in for Peter on Dynasty.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think it was Bob Kulick was on Unmasked, except for the Ace songs.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
That too.
That's why
Destroyer
I got you.
And Unmasked.
By the way, I want to wish a very happy birthday to the Destroyer album. It turned 40 not too long ago, just a few days ago. Also, I just saw that another album that turned 40 today is Judas Priest's Sad Wings of Destiny. Turned 40 today. So happy birthday to those albums, both phenomenal albums, groundbreaking. So sorry, just want to interject that in there. I would like to see Ace back in the band. JD and I have always disagreed about this for a long time. I think he could still do it. He's come out with some solo albums since leaving Kiss, which I think are phenomenal. Granted, they are in the studio, so he has that going for him. But I think he can, he's been playing live consistently. I still think he's got the chops.
Well, what if Ace tours with Kiss? And he comes out for a couple songs and plays,
that'd be cool.
Like Shock Me with the band. I would be fine with that.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, like, the reason why Kiss is always and always will be Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons to me. Now, granted, the original lineup is the Kiss lineup, Peter, Chris, Ace Frehley. I get that, and I believe that. But the blood, the heart, the soul of the band has always been Gene and Paul. They've been the machine. They stuck through. They didn't get distracted by drugs and alcohol. They stuck it out. They kept the band together. Hell, Paul Stanley even pretty much kept that band together by himself in the 80s. But putting in Ace Frehley, to me, it's just kind of like a neat nostalgic thing. I wouldn't want it to be in every concert, occurrence, unless he comes out as a special guest. And I really want Kiss to put out new music. I really think if they tapped Vinnie Vincent, if they could find him or her or whatever he is right now, I really think that would be a very wise move to kind of get the Kiss fans, back to paying tons of money for Kiss stuff.
Well, yeah, because I mean, like I said, and you guys know my opinion. I don't like the fact that the Kiss lineup now has the makeup on, because I think
nor do I.
Yeah, nor do I.
I think that should be, I'm fine. They've had so many different
characters
that that doesn't matter to me as far as I mean, I loved all the stuff. I mean, Revenge is one of my favorite albums. from them. And, you know, so I mean, it doesn't matter to me who's in the band. And if they made new music with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, that would be okay. But it's the fact that they got the makeup on.
They're portraying really someone else.
Me
they're
because it's just
portraying other people. That's my beef with it.
Right. Like, well, you know, when Vinnie Vincent was in there and they had the makeup, he was the Pharaoh or whatever they called him.
Yeah, the Egyptian god,
Egyptian whatever, and you know
that
was fine. But honestly, for me, I don't care. I mean, I love what Ace has done outside of KISS. In fact, the two Frehley's Comet records are phenomenal. I think. I mean, even though there's Ace doesn't do all the guitar work and doesn't do all the singing on those. I mean, I think those albums are great. And, you know, the solo albums he's put out and what I've heard so far of his covers album is really good. And Paul's singing on a song, I think, right?
All I got to say is 2 a.m. on a downtown street. There on the corner, two strangers meet. In the night.
Yes, that's a classic for sure.
Oh, we're going to come back to that later. Just a little foreshadowing, but go on.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess, you know, I'm like you. I completely, you know, this is how Eddie Trunk feels. He's a huge KISS fan, has been very vocal about this. I completely agree. I nothing against Tommy and Eric. They're great players. They deserve to be in the band. I don't like them wearing the makeup. I wish they would have their own characters. You know, Eric Carr was the fox, like we said. Vinnie Vincent was the Egyptian pharaoh. Give him another character, and just let him do it. But
man.
I know JD says he doesn't mind it. I understand why KISS is doing it. I understand why Gene and Paul are doing this. I really do, because those characters are more well known than the pharaoh or the fox or any other new characters. It's for the money, but. I don't know. I just would really wish that they would have new characters or not wear makeup.
You know what? I'm in total agreement with Jame, and I can't say that very often, although every once in a while he just drops giant piles of wisdom. I think the characters became bigger than the people that play the characters. Even Paul Stanley said he would be fine with someone being the star child as long as KISS was still KISS, coming out there in the makeup and the outfits and the big explosions and the awesome songs. And I never, ever had a problem with someone coming in and stepping in as the spaceman, because the person that used to be the spaceman couldn't cut it anymore. So it's not fair to me, the KISS fan who lives, breathes, and dies KISS and has spent thousands of dollars on their merchandise. I want the best product possible on stage, as long as it still feels like KISS, and it still feels like KISS.
Yeah. Well, I guess this goes on to the next topic. Rat recently played here in Indianapolis not too long ago, and they only have one original member, Bobby Blotzer, the drummer. Do you guys consider that band Rat? Brandon.
Where's Jizzy Pearl?
Brandon, your thoughts?
It's tough. It's tough because people probably don't look at Blotzer as the key member of the band. They probably look at Warren D and Piercy as being the key members. Piercy's the oldest member of that band, and I think he's ready to slow down and probably almost ready to retire. Warren and the other guys, I don't think they want to participate if Piercy's out. But I can't. It's hard for me to fault Blotzer for wanting to go out and play, because he doesn't do anything else. I mean, he's a drummer, and I think people forget how huge Rat were. I mean, they weren't just a one-hit wonder like terrestrial radio would have us believe. I mean, they had several albums, and they were selling out arenas. Now, if sorry, I get in your way away from your original question. Is this the? Do I consider this Rat? I don't really have a problem with it if the other guys aren't going to do anything. You know what I mean? For the sake of keeping the legacy alive, I'm okay with that. And I want to give you a really good example of doing that. Although you might say this guy is the key member, but look at Y&T. Dave Manichetti he's the only original member of that band, and they're still great. They put out great new music, even though Phil Kennemore was still alive. I think they got some new music in the works though, but that's a good example of keeping the band going. Or Lemmy, yeah. Well, granted, that band, I think that lineup hadn't changed for the past at least 10, 20 years. But yeah, that's true. Key member, keep the band going. I think that's when it works, and it's hard for me to look at the Rat thing and say, well, it's just a cash grab, because let's be honest. I mean, they aren't filling up arenas right now.
No,
they're playing.
You're right.
They're playing small venues. They're playing small clubs. Like, how much cash are they actually bringing in? I mean, I think that's a case where they're doing what they love.
Yeah. Brandon, I'd agree with that. And isn't he calling it Bobby Blotzer's Rat?
Rat Experience or something like that. I think I've seen a few shows that were listed as Blotzer's Rat Experience, so I really don't know. Yeah,
and I don't know either. The only thing I would say that the difference I see, like with Y&T, is that Dave he's singing and playing guitar, so that it does kind of stand out a little more than just the guy behind the drums. But if the other guys don't want to do it and he wants to play, and he finds guys that want to play that music, then I've got no problem with that. I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, I don't really have any desire to see it.
So if James went out on his own as Blue Luster, would you be okay with that, or would you just be there to support, or would you be like, what the hell? This isn't.
Well, the guys in Rat, the original guys in Rat, are not okay with it. Warren DeMartini and those guys are not cool with it, and they've gone on record saying this is not Rat. They don't agree with them doing it.
We're not going to have another Queensryche deal, are we?
Well, that's another band that's kind of going through the same things. I love the new I guess rendition of Queensryche with Todd at vocals, and Parker playing guitar. But there's a lot of people in the Queensryche fandom that are split on that. A lot of people refuse to recognize the new band with Todd in there, and only want recognize the band when Jeff was a singer. But a lot of people embrace him. So
I don't think we're going to have two Rats though. I think Piercy's ready to slow down. He started playing out long before the other guys did. He's older than they are. He's gonna. I think he's gonna slow down and probably get closer to retiring, and maybe just do some one-offs here and there. But I think maybe the other guys are ready to retire. They made so much money, and they probably still make money off out of the cellar. So that's my take.
I don't know. It's just one of those age-old. I guess I'm all right with having one original member in the band, as long as the other guys and some of the other guys in the band have been in the band when the other original members were there. For example, a band I mentioned last week, my dad's favorite band, Foghat, has one original member, the drummer, Roger Earl, but the guitar player and the bass player have been in the band forever, for a long time. So to me, that's basically the original band. And I guess everybody's going to have a different opinion on that. I don't know. It's something. It's kind of going to be controversial, and I guess it depends on each person.
Didn't we sing karaoke with the bass player from Foghat?
At one point, yes, we did.
In Smyrna,
down in Florida. That was that was random. Okay, so I guess we can go on. I'd like to talk now about some recent releases, some albums that maybe have come out recently that we want to talk about. 2016 it's been horrible for rockers' deaths, but it's been great for new music. I got some things written down here. Brandon, you mentioned the Las Vegas, one of your favorite newer bands. They had a release recently, right?
I did. We might be jumping the gun a little bit because I was hoping to talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, Las Vegas. They had an album come out last Friday. Diamond Head. They had an album come out of nowhere. I haven't got a chance to listen to it all the way through. What I've heard so far, I really like. And Metal Church, I think, has got an album coming out Friday, and it features the return of Mike Howe. So that should be pretty cool. He's been out of the band, I think, for 20 years, so it's nice to see him return. Their last album was really good, though. Generation Nothing, I believe what it was called.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of the albums that have come out recently that I've been really digging, obviously the Primal Fear one that I mentioned last time. Also, Saxon, the classic rockers Saxon have had a slew of great albums come out recently, and this one is no different. It's called Battering Ram. I think it was released in January or so. Maybe, I can't remember. It was in the last few months.
It was last year.
Oh, was it last year?
Yes.
I knew it was recent. It's just phenomenal. The mixing, the songwriting is just killer. When you look at these guys, they're getting up there in age. You'd never think that they could produce an album so great and play so well. I mean, especially the drummer, Nigel Glockler. He's just unbelievable. Sounds like he's about 23 years old up there, just kicking ass on the drums. So another album which just came out as the Last in Line album featuring the original members of the Dio band.
Oh, yeah, and Jimmy Bain, rest in peace.
Jimmy Bain, rest in peace. Vivian Campbell, and drummer Vinny Appice.
It's a great album. It's fantastic.
Pat, do you have any new recordings, or JD, do you have any new albums or anything released lately that you want to bring up?
It hasn't been super recent, but I mean, you've been hounding me, and I'm glad you have, because I really, really, really like the new Queensryche album that came out with Todd Latour on the vocals.
Yep.
What a perfect example of replacing, it's hard a lot of times with bands. The lead singer is the band, and that's just how it is, and it sucks. I don't like that, but it is. It's like people are like, oh, Axl Rose, he's Guns N' Roses. If it's Guns N' Roses without him, it's not the real band. But this is a perfect example of how that can change, and you put somebody in like Todd Latour, who not only sounds just like Jeff Tate, exactly, except he sounds like Jeff Tate in his prime.
Yeah.
And the dude's an amazing drummer, too. He's just a good musician. But that freaking album kicks ass, and they are phenomenal live, and they play like all the old stuff, which just makes the fans cream in their jeans.
Yep. I love the new album for sure.
Yeah, it's that's one of my favorites.
Pat, what about you? Anything new coming out you've been listening to?
Yeah, well, the single from the new Tremonti album, I'm happy about, and be excited to hear the rest of that album when it comes out. I mean, other than like we talked about last week, the Anthrax album, I've been listening to so much old stuff.
Evil Twin is awesome on the new Anthrax album, by the way.
Yeah, I've been listening to, just a lot of this stuff that we've compiled, of stuff that's been lost, and, we're finding it. So that's been a lot of fun to do.
And how can we not mention the new Megadeth album?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Very political, it's phenomenal. 2 new players, a new drummer, and new guitar player in Kiko. So it's I love it.
Dystopia, which I'm coming around to. Yeah, I've been listening to it more and more, and so yeah, I'm coming around to that. I wasn't thrilled with it when I first heard it, but
dude, Dystopia, the Mega Man intro is amazing.
Yep, the title track has an awesome intro. Yeah, it sounds like a Mega Man song.
I was concerned at first because I'm not a huge Lamb of God fan, even though I think those guys are really talented. But I was a little concerned just because it's just not my thing. But I'm really happy with the album. I feel as soon as I started listening to it, it had a sense of, I don't know, Peace Sells a little bit. I mean the album, that is. There was a lot of really cool, intricate rhythm patterns, which, Chris Adler, being the drummer he is no problem. And I think Peace Sells is one of his favorite albums anyway. I'm sure, like, among other Megadeth albums. So
actually, you're right. He said that in an interview. He said that's that Gar Samuelson is like one of the drummers that he idolized, when he first started getting into drumming, and that was his favorite record.
Yeah.
And then like the same time, Kiko said in an interview that Chris Poland was a guy he always really, really admired. So it's kind of crazy that you mentioned that, because the article I read with Dave Mustaine talking about it, and they were all 3 commenting on that. So yeah, I'm coming around to it. Like I said, and I've talked about this before. I mean, my favorite lineup in Megadeth was Marty Friedman, all those records, and with I just loved all those records. So I'm always kind of a little resistant to change as far as when the lineup changes like that. When Chris Broderick came on, I wasn't a fan of those albums at first until I started listening to them more. And then I love those albums now. So it just always takes me a little bit of time with Megadeth because I guess I'm just such a fan. I'm just such a fan of that era, and I would love to talk about band reunions. I would love to see that reunion, but it doesn't sound like that's ever going to happen. So
yeah, wow.
So you take what you got.
Great. Well, those are some new picks. Thank you guys for mentioning those. Moving on. Last week, I made a rather controversial statement.
Yeah.
We were talking about Guns N' Roses, and I had the audacity to say that, in my opinion, I think some of these newer Slash albums that have come out recently, his solo albums, are just as good, if not better, as some of the old GNR albums.
What?
Yeah, so I know we've been getting some flack about that. So it's something I kind of wanted to go back to. Pat, am I out of my mind?
I want to hear what Brandon says first. I want Brandon to weigh in.
Oh, why is that?
I just do.
All right. Well, that's fine. Okay. Well, I'm somewhere in the middle. On one hand, if you take yourself back to 1987 and look at the music that was in style, right, and then look at what happened when Appetite came out, it was such a game changer. It took hard rock right back to the streets. Things before Guns. Things were pretty glam, which I personally don't really have a problem with it, but look at how much a game changer it was in a post Guns N' Roses world. All the glam bands were ready to be more like Guns. So
right.
I feel like it's hard for me to say I absolutely love the Slash albums, but it's hard for me to say that his stuff is better than game-changing Appetite. However, in James's defense, I will say that Slash's records stand up next to the Illusion albums pretty well. And that's only because the Illusion albums, as good as they are and as much as I love them, they are a bit fragmented because they were pretty much living in sheds for Appetite. They were living in sheds, living in cars, barely scraping by, living on the street, and it showed in the music and in the attitude. Then they blew up and they were huge, then they had budgets, they had mansions, they had cars,
right.
they had expensive guitars, they had Joe Perry's Les Paul, for God's sakes. They had everything going for them. Which again, not knocking them because I love the Illusion albums, but I feel like it lost a little bit of that really raw attitude, and I think. What Slash, the music he makes, they're good and they're consistent, and I feel like if anything, they do stand up and maybe even in some cases better than the Illusion albums as a whole. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, and this part of why I had you go first is because I kind of thought you would take that stand. Guns N' Roses is a perfect example of a band that had all that hunger and that fire in their belly, and then when they got it, they not that they made bad music, but they made a different kind of music. And I loved the Use Your Illusion albums, and I still do, but they are a drastic change from Appetite. If you look at Appetite, I mean, that's an album that it has punk on it, it's got metal on it, it's got hard rock on it, it's got just a ton of different influences there, because that band, like you said, was poor, starving, hungry, stealing guitars to play shows, and they had that fire in their belly. When they made Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, they were all overnight millionaires, multi-millionaires. I mean, if you've read Duff McKagan's book, just the excess that fame and fortune brought them. And they made those albums are really good, but they're really produced.
Well, and I say fragmented too because they were recorded in different times. They had members in different places. Yeah, and I just finished Duff's book too. It's funny you mentioned that, and he talks about that a little bit. Where, and I think Slash did too, which I read his book as well, just right before Duff's. And it's pretty consistent when they talk about how different it was recording that album than it was with Appetite, where everyone it was so street versus things being fragmented as they were.
Yeah, right. And I'm older than all of you guys by a few years, and I know I kind of came of age, and I mentioned that last week with the Appetite album. I mean, that was just the album. So there's no way in hell I can say that the Slash's records, outshine any of that music. But I will agree that the albums that he's made are not only phenomenal, but they're consistent. And if you look at, the first album, the second album, the third album, they're the same. They're just, there's a consistency there where it's just continuous good music. And I think if you ask Slash, like I said, I can't talk for him, but I think he would tell you that he's making, the best music of his life because just because of the consistency of it, that he, I think if you fast forward 25, 30 years and there's just so much more that's stable in his life and stable in, the band that he has that, that's what it has made him, be able to turn out those riffs. And if you watch anything live that he's done with the Conspirators, I think he's a better guitar player. I mean, I think his chops are phenomenal. I mean, he's a great, I mean, not that he's always been an iconic figure and he's always been, a standout guitarist, but
yeah, absolutely.
Some of the stuff on those albums and some of the stuff that, you see him do live, you're like,
he's matured.
I've never seen him do that before.
I think it shows I've
always said that, like on the newer Slash albums, it sounds like somebody else is playing, but it's with Slash's exact tone because he's doing like sweeps and runs that I've never heard him do before. I think he's like at his peak right now, for crying out loud. It's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I just love the new albums. I love Miles. I'm a huge fan of his. As far as I'm concerned, everything that Axl was lacking, Miles makes up for. He's like a genuinely good guy, phenomenal singer, great stage, a great front man, great stage presence.
And range, too. He's got range that Axl probably might struggle with.
Right, yeah.
But in short, James, you are absolutely wrong and stupid for suggesting that Slash now with Miles Kennedy is better than the Guns N' Roses. And Pat hit it on the head. That Appetite for Destruction album, that trumps all.
All right. Well,
come on. You were 6 years old when it was released.
The music hasn't changed. I still listen to those same songs. They haven't changed.
I'm just kidding.
I know, you old bastard.
Yeah, I know. I'm almost 40.
Jeez. Well, I guess you who are listening at home weigh in on it. Am I crazy? Am I insane? Am I a complete moron? Let us know. I'd love to read the comments. Actually, for once, I'm actually willing to read internet comments, which I've never said before in my life. So, moving on. Upcoming concerts, and we'll go through this real quick here in Indianapolis, since that's where we are located. Grim Reaper is playing April 1st down on the south side, a place called The Headquarters. I have not yet been there. I've been meaning to check it out. But April 1st, they're playing. Looking forward to that. I will not be able to go. I got plans that night. I think, Brandon, are you still planning on going?
Yeah, I'm planning on going. Hey, and before then, they got 2 gigs in Indiana. They got one in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. Where are they playing up there, do you know?
4Ds. I've never been. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
But that's this Friday. That's this Friday. So I don't know. Maybe Steve's hanging out in Indiana for a week. I hope he enjoys himself. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what there is to do in Indiana.
Who knows? He'll find something fun, I'm sure. Also, The Sword is playing. Coming up, what's the date that they're playing? I can't remember. I should know. They're playing at the Vogue. Coming up, they're playing tonight. They're playing April 6th, I believe, at the Vogue.
Yes,
or maybe the 7th. It's the Friday before the 9th. I know that. They're playing. I've seen them before. Yeah. Phenomenal new band. Actually, JD kind of turned me on to these guys back, almost a decade ago because he heard them playing a Rock Band or Guitar Hero 2, which they're on there. And phenomenal band, phenomenal new band. Worth checking out. Go to that if you can. Also, a little show by one band called Soldiers of Fortune. Thin Lizzy tribute band featuring yours truly. All four of us here on the podcast tonight are playing in that band. We are playing at the Fifth Quarter Lounge down on Prospect Street, April 9th. It's a Saturday, so come on out. We got a great lineup. We hope to see some of you there. If you listen to the podcast, come up and introduce yourself when you get a chance. We'd love to chat with you and get to meet our listeners. And so that's upcoming shows. If any of you know about any other coming shows, you can post it on our Facebook page or let us know, and we'll make sure everybody knows. All right. Let's go ahead to our picks of the week for this week. JD, I don't know if you know about this, but this is where we all pick an album that we recommend to the fans listening at home. Check out maybe albums that old or new that we are listening to currently. Brandon, let's start with you.
Sure. We mentioned earlier, last Friday, Las Vegas had a new album, and that's my pick of the week. It's called Eat Me. Las Vegas, for those of you who don't know, they're a Chicago-based hard rock band. They're raw, gritty, dirty rock and roll. I love these guys. I love supporting them. I got their last 4 albums at least, and super cool band, super cool bunch of guys too. I've chatted with their guitar player quite a bit about some of his influences, and it really shows that he's really into, like old school Aerosmith, Nugent, even some like 70s punk, maybe more like the Ramones, and you can kind of hear that too. And they've toured with Motley Crue. I think Nikki Sixx produced one of their albums too. Cool bunch of guys. Again, if you haven't heard them, check them out. Las Vegas, new album's called Eat Me.
Is that James making the drumming noise? Is he drumming on his
Sorry.
You realize you do that like whenever you talk to anyone. He does that at work.
He doesn't realize he does it. He has Tourette's.
I don't think he does. I think he really does.
Yeah, sorry. I put the pen down. I'm sorry about that.
Or extreme ADD that he has to drum.
Well, he's practicing.
Moving on, Pat,
he's practicing.
Yeah, I'm practicing for the show. Talking about it got me all hyped up.
All right.
Pat, your pick.
Okay, so my pick this week is a band called Lion's Heart, and it's their 1992 debut album, which is self-titled. Brandon turned me on to this band and turned me on to their 2004 reunion album, which is on Frontiers Records, which is available on both albums I'm talking about are available on Spotify. They're also available on YouTube. To buy the album, you're basically going to have to go the route of eBay or like I did and buy it from some small Japanese used CD shop, and I'm going to have to wait a month to get it in the mail, and it'll probably be broken when I get it. But that's okay. It's actually, speaking of Grim Reaper, it's Steve Grimmett on vocals. The other guys in the band, I don't know anything about. I know they were formed in 1990. They released this album in 1992, and like I said, I got to thank Brandon for finding them because I'm just so jazzed about them. I was talking to the guys earlier. It's basically like if Whitesnake and Yngwie Malmsteen had a baby, this is what they would produce. If you told me that it was John Sykes on guitar, I would believe you. I would say, okay, yeah, that's some solo project that John Sykes did that nobody ever knew about. It's fantastic. There's everything on there. There's a song on there called Portrait. I swear to God, it could be on a Rising Force album. It's amazing. There's a couple songs on there. One of them called Have Mercy, where Steve Grimmett sounds like Mark Slaughter. I was like, is this a Slaughter album? What is this? So it's a gem. I mean, it's a diamond in the rough. It really is. And they have 4 albums actually, and I've been listening to the other 3 on that came out in the 90s that are on YouTube, and I'm in the process of trying to find them so I can have them. But they're fantastic. They're fantastic albums. So it's not only my pick of the week for the album, but I recommend you check out this band.
Okay. Pat says Lion's Heart. Check that out. Check that band out.
Lion's Heart.
Yeah. My pick.
What about my pick?
I'm coming to you.
Well, you're the host. Shouldn't you go last?
All right, go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to reach too deep. I mean, not for us anyways, but I feel like it might be a deep cut for some of the listeners here. My pick of the week for album of the week is Mob Rules by Black Sabbath with one Ronnie James Dio. I recently turned this album on to a mutual friend of ours who had only heard Heaven and Hell, and that's it as far as the Dio Sabbath time goes. And Mob Rules is one of the most underrated metal albums of all time. Of course, the title track is, I dare you to listen to it and not try to break something or get in a fight with someone.
Yep.
And Sign of the Southern Cross is on there. I mean,
love that one.
It is an unbelievable album.
Country Girls
and
on
I
that,
highly
right?
recommend you stop what you're doing right now. If you've never heard it, go on Spotify. It's on there. Black Sabbath.
No, buy it. Buy it.
Mob Rules. Well, yeah, or buy it.
It's buy it.
Let's be honest. Nobody's buying music anymore.
Oh, whoa. Let's be honest.
We do.
So we do.
I know. I bought several albums recently.
Yeah.
So,
What albums?
Then Sevenfold and Capital Cities.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and say my pick of the week. It is the latest album from a band called Stryper. It's called Fallen. These guys have had a few excellent albums out recently. They've had a ton of great albums. They've gotten some flack from the community, I guess, for being a metal band, but I think that's bullshit. What you can sing about whatever you want as long as you bring it and you put on a killer show.
Well, I like their singer Ted Cruz.
Yeah. Yeah, Ted Cruz is the front man, which is kind of weird, but this is a phenomenal album. The first single is called Yahweh. It just rips. Their last album too is phenomenal. So check it out, Stryper, Fallen. It came out late last year at some point. So
yeah,
dude,
their last album's
one
been great.
Fundamental truth in this world.
Stryper
rules.
Yes, that is. Everybody knows that. It is the law of the land. Okay, this next up is the homework part. And JD, this is a part where you're free to jump off if you want. You're not really gonna know what we're talking about.
I tell you what, my phone's about to die.
Well, thanks for jumping on here. We appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, guys. Anytime. Go metal or go home.
Good hanging with you, JD. See you next time.
Hey, good talking to you, fellas. See you soon.
Later.
Bye.
Okay. So, last week was my homework pick of the week. It was Uriah Heep's Abominog from 1982. And I don't know why I picked this. I was just looking through their discography one day, and I thought that album cover looked kind of cool. It looked some kind of like Demon Ape. And I was like, what's this? I checked it out. Like I listened to just a small part of some songs. And, this thing sounds okay. And so let's go around and you all listen to it. Pat, what do you think of Uriah Heep's Abominog?
Where do I start? I'm all for a band trying out something new and experimenting. I mean, Rush is one of my all-time favorite bands, and when you think of Rush, everybody always talks about the albums from the 80s, and there's like, there's just too much synth and too much of this, and then they got into the early 90s, and it was it sounds so thin. And then they got back into, kind of their style. So I think this is definitely a huge departure for Uriah Heep. And I'll be brutally honest. I've never been a big fan. Uriah Heep was like my dad's favorite band. And so I'd not really ever listened to him. When I hear the album, and there are some bright spots, I'll give it that. Track 1 and track 9, I was impressed with. That is Too Scared to Run was track 1, and track 9 was Sell Your Soul, and I think that was the best track. I really get the sense that it's kind of a band's last grasp at, hey, let's try this. I just got, kind of drowned out in a lot of the keyboards.
Yeah.
the synthesizers. There were a couple tracks that had some good synth intros and stuff, but I swear to God, at one point I thought Lou Gramm had joined Uriah Heep. I had to actually Wiki or Google that to find out, because I swear to God I was listening to the Foreigner album.
Really?
And I don't. Yeah, that's just the vibe I got. But I also got, and I was looking at, it came out in '82, which would still be kind of the disco era. I got a couple of tracks that I kind of felt had like a disco feel. Track 3, which was called On the Rebound, and then track 4, which was Hot Nights in a Cold Town. I really got a disco feel out of that. I was joking with James the other day. I would say that it's a Uriah heaping steaming heap of shit. But like I said, I'm not. We're all musicians. We play. I am totally fine with a band, departing into foreign waters and giving it a go. So, not knowing a lot about the band, I don't want to speculate that they're just trying to cash in on that 80s sound and stuff like that, because that would just be that would be naive of me to do that. So, it's what it feels like to me, but without knowing a lot about the band, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the album. James said it best when he said there's some good tracks on it, but I think it's pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Brandon.
All right. I feel like there's a lot to talk about for this album. First of all, I gotta disagree that this sounds like disco. If anything, to me, this sounds like a 70s prog band that became, for a short while, an 80s AOR band, because they're a 70s prog band that became an 80s AOR band for a while with the synthesizer and the Moogs. But Too Scared to Run, I think, is a strong track. I didn't mind On the Rebound. Because
I like
that's
one,
it's a Russ Ballard cover. Let me back up. Half the album is covers. You mentioned Hot Night in a Cold Town. I didn't really care for that track. That's a John Mellencamp cover. But on the Rebound is a Russ Ballard cover, and everybody's covered Russ Ballard, including Ace Frehley. Can you guys name the tune? A little trivia there.
Didn't he? Russ Ballard, wasn't he with Argent?
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But you guys know the tune?
No, I don't.
JD sang it earlier.
Oh,
Into the Night. Yeah, that's a Russ Ballard.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know.
No, I didn't know that.
Every week you will learn something new on this podcast. I liked That's the Way That It Is. That was a cover by they're called the Bliss Band. I'm not at all familiar with them, but it's a little AOR-y. I'm not opposed to.
You want to know what my notes were for That's the Way That It Is?
Running All Night sounded like a Styx tune, I thought, which I'm not an enormous Styx fan. They got some songs I like. I liked the song Prisoner. It had kind of a synthy ballad to it. Again, I don't think this is a bad album. It's just not terribly consistent, because there's the other tracks they didn't really reach out and grab me. But in the album's defense, I think since Bob Daisley being a big contributor to the band, this is right after he wrote or co-wrote Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. So who knows? Maybe he was just running a little bit empty when they did this, and they thought, oh, well, I've got this much material to write. The rest will be covers. And I don't know if any of you guys checked out the original versions of the songs they covered, but a lot of them sound almost identical to the original material. For let's see, That's the Way That It Is, and Prisoner. They sound pretty close, with the exception of maybe the vocals or the way they were sang, or even Hot Night in a Cold Town, which again that was the one I thought was kind of more of a throwaway. But so that's my verdict. Not bad, but not consistent.
Yeah. You're like me, and like I said, I'm not going to be rushing back to listen to it again.
Yeah.
And as the fact check here, actually, Brandon, I pulled it up here on Wikipedia.
Uh-oh.
He was an Argent. Russ Ballard was an Argent.
Gotcha.
He wrote New York Groove.
Huh.
I don't see anything in here about in the night. And he wrote Rainbows Since You've Been Gone.
Since You've Been Gone, yeah, I knew that.
And he wrote God Gave Rock and Roll to You. So, that's something. Like we said, you learn something new every day here on the Stone and SteelCast. So, I'll go ahead with my comments. We're kind of up against it, so I won't take too long. But I kind of echo what you guys both think. Overall, pretty forgettable. Actually, Pat, you listened to it the night we had our last podcast, and when you said Foreigner, that's all I could hear when I was listening to it. Seriously, I was like, "Oh my God, he's right." It does sound like Lou Gramm should be on there. It sounds like a Foreigner album. It really does, which isn't bad. I like Foreigner.
Yeah,
but
I don't hear Foreigner. I
Really?
gotta disagree there.
Man.
I don't hear Foreigner at all.
Oh wow! But I can tell you one thing: the music doesn't really match the album cover.
No.
I
think we all agree.
Yeah, like I said, it's not something horrible. If I was hanging out somewhere at a party and somebody threw it in, I wouldn't throw a fit and start throwing fists and being a dick to everybody like I am sometimes at parties when they put music on. But no, it's okay. Like I said, though, I'm not in a big rush to listen to it again. It's pretty forgettable. But who knows? If you haven't heard it, check it out and let us know what you think, please.
Russ Ballard did. I found it. Russ Ballard did record In the Night.
He did?
Yeah, 1984.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, folks.
Yeah.
You fact check my fact check.
I did.
Thank you.
To comment on what Brandon was saying, I did write on several of the songs. I was getting an AOR feel. For some reason, just those two songs I mentioned, I just really felt like there was kind of like almost that I Was Made for Loving You, that, the Kiss. I was just kind of getting that feel from those songs. I actually listened to the album twice. I listened to it the night that it was assigned, and then I listened to it, I don't know, a few days later. But
I heard more Styx in 80s Styx in Kansas than I.
Yeah, I could hear that. Yeah,
I could see that too. Definitely.
But then again, that's AOR pretty much.
Yeah,
so, true.
My notes for the track "That's the Way It Is" were started promisingly, then failed.
Well, wait till you see the video. I'm going to post that.
Like my life. I can relate. Okay, so any last comments on that album? So now, covered. Brandon, it is your turn for this week's pick of the week.
Good.
Homework assignment.
We're going to switch gears.
So what do you got for us?
We'll switch gears a little bit. I'm going to give you guys something I think you'll enjoy listening to a little bit more. It's a little album called Trouble Walkin' by a man named Ace Frehley.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And I will leave you with that. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Ace Frehley, Trouble Walkin'. I don't know if I've ever listened to that all the way through. I've heard some of the songs, but I never really sat down and gave it a good, solid listen. I've just always either had it on an iPod or just started streaming it and didn't really listen to it so much. So that's a good pick. Thank you.
Yeah. I think
Brandon,
you guys
is that the album that has the cover of Do Ya?
It's got two covers on there, as a matter of fact. But go listen to it.
Yep, sure will.
Look for guest appearances by certain Skid Row members on background vocals too.
Okay, we'll keep an ear out for that for sure. Okay, any final comments from you two?
No, just like the page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've added some videos of some of the music we've been talking about, including our picks of the week. I found a video for that Abominog album that I added to the playlist. It's definitely worth a view. It's
awesome.
Some classic 1982 visual.
Oh, I can't wait. I'll have to watch that for sure. All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, JD, for coming on and being our special guest this week. We appreciate it. Thank you at home or in your car listening to us. We definitely appreciate it. And we will talk to everybody next week. Until then, keep rocking.
This has been the Stone&SteelCast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.